Okay, so we've had a very, very busy weekend in the NRL and the NRLW. So we're going to review round 18 of the NRL and round 1 of the NRLW. So let's dive straight in because there's some very interesting results. We are obviously still in the origin period for the NRL, so we only had 5 NRL games this weekend. We had a full, obviously, round 1 fixture list for the NRLW, and there's some really interesting scorelines and some really interesting storylines coming out of this weekend. So with the NRL, the Bulldogs and the Broncos started the weekend's action. The Bulldogs were in a very comfortable winning position. I think they were 18-10 at one point. They lost 22 points to 18 to the Broncos. And there's a lot of question marks about the introduction of Lockie Galvin into the Bulldogs setup, and what that will mean going forward. And their form recently has been on a little bit of the wobble. Now, yes, they are missing players because of Origin, so are the Broncos. But the Broncos have gone through their mid-season wobble and have hit some form at the right time. The Bulldogs are also no longer top spot in the NRL. So they're having their wobble now, which I think is a good time for them to have a wobble. That gives them time to work out what they need to fix going towards the second half of the season and therefore going towards finals. But they've been showing some worrying signs lately. In saying that, the Broncos have shown some worrying signs at points this season, but have hit form at the right time, especially during the origin period when they're missing some of their key players. They've started to hit form, and so it's starting to make the top end of the table look a little bit interesting. The Raiders Dragons, for me, I think was one of the best games I've seen just on a pure entertainment standpoint. It's finished 28-24 to the Raiders. Kyo Weeks has had a brilliant game. Sloan for the Dragons has had a brilliant game. It really was just so open, end to end, really entertaining, a proper even contest, and the Raiders come out on top. The Raiders are seemingly finding ways to win this season, and the Raiders are performing much better than expected at the start of the season. They have really stunned a lot of people with their continued good form. The Dragons gave them a right test today. So we know the Dragons have got points in them, but again, it's that inconsistency which is a problem, and some of their game management and key moments under pressure, they make the odd error. But when you got a fullback like Kyle Weeks having the seasons he's having and the game he had, even with Sloan scoring a hat trick, Kyle Weeks is two of his individual tries are absolutely ridiculous. This game was filled with highlight reel tries. It really was a fantastic watch. And as a Raiders fan, I was a bit nervous at times watching this game that we could blow an opportunity to go clear at the top. But the Raiders held on, winning 28-24. Thrilling game. Absolutely entertaining, thrilling game. And for new fans of the game, I would suggest watching that game in full if you can. It was an attacking masterpiece by both sides. Defensively, both sides, that is a bit concerning with some of the tries they leaked, and that is an area of concern, I think, for the Raiders and the Dragons going forward. But it was an entertaining game. Really was. Now, the Cowboys and the Storm, that finished 20 points to 26 to the Storm, away from home up in North Queensland. Again, this is a period of time where, again, Origin players are not obviously eligible for selection because they're in camp. The Cowboys gave the Storm a real good test. They really did, missing Dearden. That is an important statement from the Cowboys, even in defeat, although they are still outside the top 8. The Storm, even when they're winning, they're not what is expected of them. They're not playing as expected, I think is a good way of looking at it. There are some concerning errors in the Storm's performances. There's areas of improvement. While they are in the top 4, and actually I think in the top 3 at this point, they're still not fully firing. I think there's still room for this Storm side to get better, but there is still room for improvement, which is worrying for the rest of the competition, but also it's frustrating for Storm fans and Craig Bellamy that they're not getting things right at times, and they were tested by the Cowboys. And again, this is another game for any new fans to the game. I suggest you watch some of these close games because you can learn a lot from them. The blowout scorelines you can't really learn much from, but close games like Bulldogs Broncos, Raiders Dragons, Cowboys Storm, these are games that I would suggest new fans to rugby league from North America, where we obviously do have a lot of new fans in recent years, watch the game. The Cowboys, though, still some very worrying form. They've only won one in like the last 6, I think. So their season is in a little bit of in the balance. They need to find wins from somewhere and turn some of these defeats into wins. These close defeats are killing them. The Storm, room for improvement, as I say. The Roosters Tigers 28-30. The Tigers finally get a win. They snap their losing streak. The Roosters, who've been on a good run of form, suffer a defeat at home in a close game. Now, unfortunately, I didn't watch the Roosters Tigers or Sea Eagles Rabbitohs games because I was catching up with the NRLW and tried to watch as many of their games as possible as well because it's the start of their season. I've now done that. But the Roosters Tigers, I mean, the Roosters had a disappointing start to the season. I think we can all admit that, but at times they've shown a lot of fight and a lot of grit to get where they are on the ladder. They are missing players through Origin. The Tigers, I mean, they've been on a really poor run of form since the Lockie Galvin contract situation reared its ugly head, which has now moved on to the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs' form has started to wobble a little bit. The Tigers finally get an important win. They are. I will say this: the Tigers are a better side than last season. So Benji Marshall is starting to turn things around, but there's rumours coming out of the Tigers. There's always leaks coming out the Tigers that things may not all be happy campers. With De Silva leaving as well. I mean, the Tigers. I wouldn't say it's all happy campers at Leichhardt and Campbelltown. I would say that, but that is a crucial win for them amongst negative headlines this season. And it's still very congested from like 5th downwards in the NRL ladder. It is very congested, and one win can really change. 1 or 2 wins can really change where a team sits on the ladder. But another close game. So these close games, I would suggest new fans to the game watch because it shows the best of attack and desperation defence. The final game of the weekend was the Sea Eagles and the Bunnies. The Sea Eagles get the win 30 points to 12. They've also had their wobbles this season, and there's been question marks over Anthony Seibold's position and some of the selections and player fitness. The Bunnies, their good start to the season was really surprising under Wayne Bennett. Their form has tailed off. They still have injuries to deal with. There's still selection headaches to deal with, but their form has unfortunately dropped off significantly. And yes, this is in the Origin period, so players are going to be selected for the Blues and the Maroons. But their form recently, the last couple of months, has been quite concerning. They're dropping further and further away from the top 8. At the start of the season, with that great early start of the season, they had that first 5-6 weeks. There were some people saying they're a dark horse for the top 8 if they can continue this momentum, considering the injuries and the disruption to the team with key players out. But their form is dropping away worryingly, and I think this is a concern for Bunnies fans about the depth of the team and the squad, fitness of players, form of some players. Last season was disappointing. This season has started to become disappointing as well. So there's a lot of concerns at the Bunnies. The Sea Eagles, they've managed a wobbly period. They're starting to put some wins together. I think moving Tom Trbojevic to the centres has been a masterstroke. It's opened up that back line a little bit, and I think also protects Tom Trbojevic from potentially overextending his hamstrings and things like that. It is a positional switch. It's a tactical positional switch. It seems to be working. So we'll see if Seibold continues with that experiment going forward. But the Sea Eagles are fun to watch. They are fun to watch. The Sea Eagles games are always very entertaining. So it's a very entertaining weekend in the NRL. Obviously, every other team gets a bye this weekend. Now we look at the NRLW. This is the first weekend of the 2025 season. We now have a 12-team league. And the Sharks and the Eels was the first match of the weekend, and it was a brilliant match to watch. It really was. It was in the balance right up until the final whistle. The Eels winning 18 points to 16. The Sharks obviously were last year's beaten grand finalists. The Eels did not make grand final, obviously, and the Eels have struggled in recent seasons. I think that's fair. But that was a really good win for the Eels first for away from home. First match of the season. Obviously, every team has gone through a lot of roster movement. So the squads that were playing last season, a lot of changes happened because we've got 2 new teams entering the competition. But that was a statement win from the Eels. It was a fun game to watch. And it was a good way to start the NRLW season off. The Bulldogs and the Knights. The Bulldogs are obviously the new team in the competition. and they've signed a lot of players from various teams. The Sharks, they've taken a few players from the Sharks, but they've taken players from other teams as well. The Knights, they are looking weaker as a setup than they were, the last couple of years. They've won obviously 2 grand finals. Last year they didn't quite play as well as previous seasons, but their record in the last 3 years is quite scary for the win-loss percentage. The Bulldogs were significantly better in every facet of the game. They deservedly won 26 points to 12. The Knights do look a weaker side this season than in the previous 3 seasons with the players that they've lost to other sides. That was noticeable. Their forward pack got a bit bashed up. Their outside backs were exposed defensively as well because they're on the back foot. And the Bulldogs fully deserved that maiden victory as an NRLW team. The Broncos Tigers. The Broncos look very, very strong. They win 28 points to 4. They've strengthened their team over recent seasons. They were last year's minor premiers, and then it sort of fell apart in the finals, which was a bounce back season for them because they had been disappointing in the previous couple of seasons. That was a statement win by the Broncos at home over the Tigers. The Tigers, they've made some additions to their side. They've also had some player turnover as well, like every side has, obviously with the Bulldogs and Warriors joining the competition. But the Tigers were significantly second best in a lot of facets of the game. They were dominated up the middle. They were dominated in the outside backs. The Broncos look scary. The Broncos, that is a statement from the Broncos. I will say that they look a lot stronger than they did last season as well. But with more teams added, more games to be played, and with Origin taking place basically in pre-season, there's still a lot of errors in this opening round of games. I will say there were a lot of handling errors by every team, and we'll get to some of them later on. But that was a statement win for the Broncos over the Tigers. The Raiders Dragons, I was disappointed with the Raiders. They lost 36 points to 14 at home against the Dragons. Obviously, the undercard, should we say, to the main event, which was the Raiders Dragons in the NRL. The Dragons look really good. That was a really good performance from the Dragons. They've underperformed in recent seasons. Have the Dragons? They're in a great junior nursery with the Illawarra region as well as St George. A lot of local juniors playing in the Dragons setup, which is good to see. They won quite well. That's another statement win. There were periods in the first half where the game was in the balance, and then they stormed away as the game wore on, and they had just too much for the Raiders. And the Dragons look a lot stronger as a squad this year than in the previous couple of years. Obviously, Jamie Soward was the head coach. He got released from his head coaching duties, bringing in a new head coach, different philosophy. It seems to have paid off. Really important win first week up. I think that will give the whole organisation some confidence and the players some confidence. They all played really well, and statement win. The Cowboys Titans, again, the Cowboys played really well, 20 points to 6. The Titans have had some player turnover. They've got some players out as well with family reasons, maternity leave, and you could see that the Cowboys had just too much for them up the middle. In the wide areas, the Titans look a little bit weaker, I would say, this season. They've made some positional changes as well to where players are playing. Like Jamie Chapman, for example, has gone to fullback from the centres. That's an interesting tactical positional switch that the Titans have decided to employ. She can also play on the wing, but they have lost other players from that setup. And the Cowboys just looked that little bit more prepared, a little bit fitter. They made less errors. So again, this also talks about how the pre-seasons went for these sides as well. So the Cowboys, that was a good statement. When they've since they've been in the competition, they haven't made the finals. So that's a good start to the season for the Cowboys. They've had some difficult seasons in their NRLW existence. Maybe the temperature played a little part to play. It obviously is warmer in North Queensland than the rest of Australia, which has had a predominantly cooler spell in the last few weeks. It's below average temperatures in other parts of the east coast of Australia, but northern Northern Queensland's still been pretty hot and humid. Obviously, the Cowboys are based there. They're going to have that home field advantage a little bit, but that's a statement win from the Cowboys over the Titans. Quite comfortable in the end. And then finally, the Roosters and the Warriors. It was good to see the Warriors back in the competition. Obviously, COVID knocked them out for a couple of years and they went into hiatus. They did state they would return. They have returned. But the Roosters dominated them 30 points to 6. The Roosters obviously winning the grand final last year, alongside the Broncos, are favourites to get to the grand final again and make that a very interesting grand final. So Broncos and Roosters are the two favourites for the competition. One concern is Jamie Frassard dislocating her elbow, and you could actually see it on replay that her elbow basically pop out. It was a nasty injury, led to some lengthy treatment on the side in the corner. I think that's the only downside to the Roosters' performance, is that injury. But otherwise, it was a statement win. There was still a lot of handling errors, and again, the Warriors didn't have a trials match. The other teams all had trials matches, so that I think could be a mistake by the Warriors management not having that trial match. Yes, they obviously are based in Auckland in New Zealand, and logistics can be a problem, but not having that pre-season trials match, I think, is an error of judgment. The Warriors showed some good physicality. They did show some good signs, but the Roosters obviously a more experienced setup, a more settled setup as well. There's not a lot of player turnover with the Roosters, unlike other sides in the competition. They haven't lost a lot of talent, considering other sides have with the Bulldogs and Warriors entering the competition. They still look just as strong as they did last year, which I think is going to be scary for the rest of the competition. But losing Frassard with that elbow injury, it was a nasty injury, and that could be season over, season done, because of the length of the season. So we may not see Frassard take the field again this season. That looked nasty. That looked like a long-term injury layoff, which is a massive shame, because at the end of the season we've obviously got the test matches and stuff to look forward to. So when you lose a player like that who had a brilliant Origin series, that's going to cause a little bit of a reshuffle, and injuries are going to happen. We did also see in the NRLW some players put on report, so we may see some suspensions coming out of the opening week of competition. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled on that. We also saw in the NRL some players put on the report as well, so we may see some suspensions coming out of this round of fixtures for both the NRL and NRLW. But there we go, very fun, interesting weekend of rugby league. Some really close games, which was refreshing to see in the NRL. There was no real blowouts. The Sea Eagles Bunnies is the only one that really started to blow out. All the other games were really, really tight, really, really close, within 6 points, which is really good to see. It's good to see the competitiveness of the NRL. We did see a couple of lopsided scores in the NRLW in regards to scoring, but it's round one of the competition. You're going to expect these handling errors and teething issues with new players joining squads and combinations being figured out. But that Sharks-Eels game was brilliant to watch. That was a proper arm wrestle. And I think that was a good way to start the weekend's action. The Bulldogs-Knights was an arm wrestle for periods, and then the Bulldogs, blew them out. And the other games were a little bit lopsided, which is a shame, but it does sort of show who the top sides already are. It'll be interesting if they can follow that up in weeks to come. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. Is the Bulldogs' form starting to become a concern? For example, the Broncos have hit form at the right time. The Raiders, who expected them to be this good? The Storm, misfiring but winning games. So I think there's still more to come from the Storm. The Tigers getting that really good away win against the Roosters, who've been in good form. Sea Eagles, Tom Trbojevic in the centres, is that a long-term plan? And then we look at the NRLW, really fun way to start already. We'll see what next weekend's action brings, obviously with that second round of fixtures. And can those teams that lost respond to those defeats they've suffered? And with those teams that won, can they double down and win again? So it's going to be interesting. But there we go. That's all the rugby league action from this weekend done and reviewed. Thank you very much for watching. I may do the review separately going forward. I just decided to do it in one video because obviously the NRL had Origin impacted round. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. And I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.